You feel a little cold on your walk to the car, so you turn the heater up, pull on a jacket, and forget about it by the time you're inside again. That's the entire extent of your relationship with winter, an inconvenience measured in seconds. Now take away the car. Take away the jacket. Take away the heater, the walls, the windows that keep the wind out. Take away the grocery store down the street and the food sitting in it. Put yourself in Northern Europe 40,000 years ago at the start of a 6-month winter, with temperatures that stay below freezing for weeks at a time and daylight that barely lasts 8 hours. You have no fitted clothing, no permanent house, no stockpile you can just drive to. Most people assume the thing that killed early humans in winter was the cold itself, that it simply froze them where they stood. That's not actually the real story. Cold alone is survivable. What actually killed people was running out of food, running out of fuel, running out of daylight to work with weeks before the season ended. Winter wasn't a temperature problem, it was a math problem. So how do you solve a 6-month math problem with no calendar and no way to restock? Let's find out. So how do you eat for 6 months when nothing is growing? You don't wait until you're hungry to start solving that. Archaeological sites show deliberate food caching going back tens of thousands of years. Dried meat, preserved fish, and nuts buried in cool pits or stored in raised structures away from ground moisture and scavengers. This is the same logic behind a modern pantry, except the wrong calculation here doesn't mean an inconvenient grocery run, it means starving in February. Winter didn't begin when the snow fell, it began the moment they started storing. So how do you stay warm without a jacket? You make one. And not casually. Sites across Ice Age Europe and Siberia show bone needles dating back over 40,000 years, some barely a millimeter wide, used to stitch fitted, layered clothing from animal hide, rather than just draping a skin over the shoulders. Fitted clothing traps a layer of warm air against the body the way a modern insulated coat does, and that difference in stitching technique is the difference between surviving a Siberian winter and not. People assume early humans just wrapped themselves in fur. They didn't. They tailored it. So where do you actually live for 6 months straight? Not in the open, and often not even in a cave, since caves were rare and frequently occupied by predators already sheltering from the same cold. Mammoth bone dwellings found in Eastern Europe, dating to around 15,000 years ago, show heavy bones anchored deliberately into the ground to resist wind, with hides stretched over the frame as a windproof, semi-waterproof shell. This wasn't a hut, it was a purpose-built structure engineered for one specific brutal season, the Ice Age equivalent of a home built to code. So, what do you burn when the forest freezes and firewood gets scarce? You burn what's actually available, which in a lot of these environments meant animal fat and bone. Bone burns slower and hotter than wood once it gets going, and archaeological hearths show clear evidence of bone-fueled fires used specifically in the depths of winter when wood supply thinned out. Modern people don't have to think about their fuel source running out mid-season. Ancient people planned an entire backup fuel system for exactly that failure point. That's contingency planning, 40,000 years early. So who does what when the entire group is stuck indoors for months? Winter forced a division of labor that summer never required. Some maintained fire and shelter, some managed the food stores and rationed them. Older members with more experience made calls about when supplies were running dangerously low. This wasn't a hierarchy for its own sake, it was a survival system, the same way a ship's crew assigns roles for a long voyage where nobody can just quit halfway through. A group that didn't organize this way didn't make it to spring. So how did they know when things were about to go wrong? Long before modern forecasting, groups tracked subtle seasonal signals, animal migration timing, the thickness of ice, the behavior of birds before a hard freeze, and used those signals to decide when to stop moving and settle in for the season. This is environmental literacy built from generations of direct observation, not guesswork, closer to a farmer reading soil than anything resembling luck. The people who read those signs correctly ate through February. The ones who didn't often didn't make it to March. So what happens if the person who knows all of this dies partway through the season? The group doesn't just lose a person, it loses the accumulated knowledge of exactly how to survive that specific winter in that specific place, which is why care for older, experienced individuals shows up remarkably early in the archaeological record. Passing that knowledge down wasn't sentimental, it was the only way the information survived longer than any single human did. Knowledge was the real stockpile. Zoom out across all of it, the buried caches of dried meat, the bone needles stitching fitted hides, the mammoth bone shelters anchored against the wind, the bone-fueled fires burning through the coldest stretch of the year, and one thing becomes clear. None of this was luck, and none of it was toughness alone. Winter wasn't survived by accident. It was solved months in advance by people paying closer attention to their world than we usually give them credit for. If you want more of the ancient history nobody else is telling you, subscribe.